everybody, it's Carol with O'Brien Custom Turning, and it's supposed to be time for us to diamond paint and chat, but I'm afraid I don't have time to diamond paint tonight again. Month of October got past us, and I managed to paint 3 whole times last month. Tonight I'm working on Think Pink cards, but we can sit and I'll chat with you while I fill up my cards. Now, I just managed to forget how to spell my last name in this last one while I was talking to you. So we may not be able to chat for long, but we'll see what happens. I thought that tonight we'd talk about all of the places I've been that ended me up back where I started. Many, many years ago, some days it feels like many, many, many years ago, but many years ago, I was born in Indiana, and we lived in Indiana for some time, and then my parents moved with me, obviously, and we went to Missouri, and from Missouri, that's where we got my very first dog. His name was Cookie. He was named after Cookie Rojas on the Royals baseball team, because everybody should name their dog after baseball team players. We moved from Missouri to Illinois, and while we were in Illinois, I have very vague memories because I was very little. All that I remember in Illinois is that we went to a church that was a 2-story church, and we went to a Halloween party, and somebody, I don't even remember who it was, somebody fell down the stairs because, you know, their heel caught on the stairs. So I have that memory that somebody fell. And I also have heard the story. I don't remember it because, you know, when you're little, you forget things. But the story goes that a young teenager in the church was at this Halloween party throwing me up in the air and catching me, and she missed. And I landed on my head, and yes, that explains many, many things. But when I landed on my head, it knocked me unconscious, and I quit breathing. And at that time, they were very worried about the non-breathing thing, of course. But ended up, I fractured my clavicle, and we didn't realize it because they were more concerned about the not breathing situation. So went through most of my life, and my right clavicle healed incorrectly. So if you ever have the opportunity to watch in videos, you'll notice that my shoulders are a little bit crooked because it healed crookedly, and nobody ever noticed it because I never complained of pain, Mom said. And since I wasn't complaining of pain, nobody ever noticed that there was a problem with that shoulder. So I don't remember much from that time and location. I remember I had a best friend. Her name was Heather. Heather lived very close to me, and Mom says that I came home one day and slammed the door and told Mom I was never, ever, ever, ever going to play with Treva again. And so, you know, Mom, in her wisdom of motherhood, asked me what on earth was the matter and why I wasn't going to play with my best friend anymore. And my answer was, well, because she had to go home and eat dinner. Because, you know, when you're 5 or 6, that's very, very serious and important that she had to go home and eat dinner. And I have a memory of while we were there, going to football games with my dad. My dad went to all of the high school football practices and games and things because he was involved in the church and with the youth group and such. And as he was getting to know the young men, he went to the practices. And one day, one of the high school young men threw the football, and wouldn't you know, bam, right in the face. So I had a big black eye, covering my whole half of my face for a week. And that was a very vivid memory at probably 7 years old. And that one I remember. That one stuck with me for a very long time. In those two places, in Missouri and Illinois, I picked up two sisters, one in each state. We left Illinois and went up to Minneapolis, Minnesota. We stayed up in Minneapolis through my 7th grade year. One of my most vivid things I remember in my 7th grade year is the little boy across the street laughing and giving me a really hard time because I had to get on the bus at 7:30 in the morning, and he just got to walk down the street to go to the school down the block, but I lived across the street, so I had to ride the bus 30 miles away because I lived on the wrong side of the street. And he just thought that that was the funniest thing in the world, that I had to get on the bus 30 minutes before he did because I lived on the wrong side of the street. So that saying came into our conversations very frequently, that you live on the wrong side of the street. And, he just thought that was as funny as all get out, that he could use that literal words, that you live on the wrong side of the street. So we moved from Minnesota. Are you hearing a pattern here yet? We moved from Minnesota and we came to Culver, Indiana during my 7th grade year. And then in my 8th grade year, we moved to Plymouth, Indiana. And in Plymouth, Indiana, I remember at least 2 houses. It may have been 3, but I remember at least 2. And that is where we stayed until I graduated from high school. Immediately after high school, as in like the next month after high school, I got married and moved into a trailer park in Plymouth. Lived in several different places in Plymouth, like 2 or 3 different apartment places. Lived in Rochester, Indiana. We lived in Warsaw, Indiana. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Moved to Leesburg, Florida. Moved back to Atlanta, Georgia, and then moved back to Leesburg, Florida. At that point is where I was separated, got divorced. Sean and I lived in 1, 2, 3, at least 3, if not 4 houses in Lady Lake, Leesburg area down in Florida. Then we moved to Fletcher, North Carolina. Then we moved to South Carolina for a year. And then from there, we went to Leesburg, Indiana, which everybody thought that was very funny, that I went from Leesburg, Florida, now up to Leesburg, Indiana. And then from there, we are now in Columbia City, Indiana, which is our forever retirement home. And we hope to never, 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 never move again. So where I am now, here in Columbia City, is about an hour and a half from where I was born. And 30 to 45 minutes from the city where I graduated from high school. So when they say the world is a small place, The world is definitely a small place. And indeed, you just never know where you're going to end up. So in all of my travels, I ended up picking up 2 sisters and a husband and 5 children along the way. For my children, my oldest 2 were born up here in Indiana. They were born, both of them, in the same hospital with the same midwife. And then all 3 of the younger ones were born down in Florida, all at the same hospital with the same physician. So it was, at least they stayed in a small spot, I guess. Now they are mostly all over the place within the same country, finally. And I say finally because our number 3 son just got back home. Our oldest son, he is 33. He and his wife are living in Indiana. They are parents to our 3 grandchildren. They have a his, a hers, and an ours. So the babies are almost 9, almost 8, and almost 3, as amazing as that is. Then our next one is 31. He is living down in Florida. He completed 7 years of college at BBC in Springfield, Illinois, and then chose to return back to his hometown down in Florida. Our number 3 son is the one who just returned home. He's been stationed over in Germany for the past 4 years. He just finished his 2nd tour of duty with the Army. He is an attack helicopter mechanic. He just signed to do his 3rd tour. He's going to be stationed in Colorado. So I am very thankful that he's back in the States, because during the time of COVID, he was not allowed to travel. So we actually have not seen him since 2018 when we moved into this house. So very, very thankful he's home. Patrick is our number 4 son. He is the one that those of you who've been with us since we opened the business have met through the Facebook page, because he's helped us out occasionally. He lives here in Indiana. He is working on his bachelor's degree of nursing. He has a bachelor's degree of psychology. He has an associate's degree of nursing. He's working as a registered nurse, and he will be finishing that bachelor's degree of nursing this May. So he's been working really hard on that. This June coming up, it will be 2 years that he's been an RN. And then the baby is Caitlin. She is our shipping and receiving and marketing departments. You hear seen her a lot on the page, and then she has a playlist here on the channel with us. Caitlin is 17. She was born down in Florida, and as the only girl with 5 older brothers, of course, her life has been very drastically different compared to if she had other sisters at home, or whatever that may be. But she did an introductory video, so if you want to know more about her specifically and her interests and things, you can pop over and watch that video, and she talked about what she likes to do specifically. Well, what else would you like me to ramble on about tonight? Talked about where we came from. I guess Sean actually started down in Florida, And he stayed in Florida, moved around throughout Florida, Central Florida, but stayed in Florida his whole life until I came into the picture. So I don't know if I was a bad influence or a good influence or which it was, but until I came along, he stayed within the state of Florida, and then we moved up to the Carolinas. Now, when that all happened, at the time, I am a master's level prepared registered nurse by trade, and I was working as a corporate consultant for a long-term care nursing facility. And I had 10 facilities in the state of Florida. And we were just starting to get that feeling like you get sometimes that it's maybe getting time to move on. That, you know, you're just getting that vibe that your boss is wanting to replace you maybe. And her daughter had just taken some training to learn to do what I did and wanted to move into my position. And it was getting on time. And our lease was ending in the next 6 months. So we talked about it and said, you know, if we're going to take a new job and move anyway, we thought it might be kind of cool to move up to the mountains. So I called a headhunter and said, you know, if something comes up in the next 6 months, we're not ready right away. In the next 6 months, we think we'd like to go up to the mountains. So if something comes up, give me a call. And she actually called me within 24 hours. And I got a phone call to go to Covenant Dove was the name of the company that called me. They had 60 facilities in 10 different states. And initially I was a regional level MDS educator and had multiple facilities in multiple states. I stayed with them for a very long time, and it was just not last year, 2 years ago. I don't even remember now. They all are running together. It's been within the last 2 years that I actually got laid off from working for them, and that's when we moved me into the business full time. But that was when we moved up to the mountains to start with, because I was working as a corporate consultant, and we said, well, let's go to the mountains. And from there, as a corporate consultant, I started doing medical record reviews from home. And since I was working from home doing medical record reviews for this company, we realized that we could live anywhere in the nation. And my granddaughter lived here in Indiana. So it kind of made sense to come this way towards where my grandchildren were. So here we are. And then things just kind of, one thing fell into place, one right after the other. And, you know, we opened the business and got laid off, and I started helping him in the business, and here we are. So, that's about 20 minutes. So I promised you I would babble to you for 15 to 20 minutes. So that's where we are. Of course, as always, if you have any questions about anything I said or anything else that you want to know, any more details or anything, let me know down in the comments. And I will see you next time. Until then, have a great day. Bye.